While my husband was in the delivery room with me, his stepsister, Candy, suddenly burst in and started snapping photos. Covering her mouth in disgust, she said, "Sonny, you look hideous giving birth. Isn't my brother going to be traumatized?" Mortified and furious, I screamed to her to get out. My brother, defending my honor, grabbed her phone and deleted the invasive pictures. She immediately threw a full-blown tantrum right outside the room, wailing, "I worked hard to take those pictures. What right do you have to delete them?" My husband Ethan's face went pale with rage, and he knocked my brother to the floor with a single punch. "Get on your knees and apologize to Candy, or you'll regret this." On a day that should have been about welcoming our new baby, my in-laws surrounded my brother and gave him a brutal beating. My brother, refusing to be cowed, yelled back, "She was taking pictures of my sister without her permission. I only deleted those." Ethan scoffed, "You think you're justified in bullying a young woman? You mess with my sister, you pay the price." He grabbed a chair, ready to break my brother's hand. Fighting through the searing pain, my face as white as a sheet, I rushed out and slapped Ethan across the face. Ethan Miller, but getting a divorce. The force of the blow turned Ethan's head, his cheek instantly red and swollen. He stared at me, his eyes filled with shock and disappointment. In that moment, Candy rushed forward and slapped me hard across the face. "Don't be such a bitch, Sonny," she shrieked. I lost my balance and collapsed heavily onto the floor. The stitches from the delivery tore open, and a wave of agony made me break out in a cold sweat. Crimson blood began to spread from beneath me, staining my white hospital gown. "Sonny," my brother screamed, his voice torn with anguish. He was a mess on the floor, trying desperately to crawl toward me, but my father-in-law and the others dragged him back like he was nothing. Candy looked down at me, her voice dripping with venom. "Sonny, how could you? This is your husband, and you hit him for your brother? Did you ever even love him?" She raised her voice deliberately, making sure every member of the Miller family who had gathered around could hear her clearly. Her words immediately drew a chorus of agreement. "Exactly. Once you marry a Miller, you are a Miller. Why are you siding with an outsider?" Another relative chimed in. "Her brother is immature, and she's just as bad for encouraging him. It's disgraceful." Ethan shot me a cold glance before pulling Candy into his arms to comfort her. A few moments later, a nurse brought out our baby. I struggled to lift my head and saw Candy standing nearby, holding my son. A cruel smile twisted Candy's lips. "Choose your precious son, and your brother Cole gets both his hands broken. Or choose your brother, and from this day forward, this child has nothing to do with you. I'll raise him as my own." She taunted, "Go on, Sonny. Choose." My newborn son was now a pawn they were using to blackmail me. No one tried to intervene. Some even looked on as if enjoying the drama. My brother was on the verge of passing out from the pain, yet he still managed to shout, "Sonny, don't worry about me. Choose the baby. Choose the baby." Ethan looked at me, covered in my own blood, without a trace of compassion in his eyes. "Sonny, stop making a scene. Kenny just wants justice. Make a choice, and we can put this behind us. Otherwise, you'll have to face the consequences." My breath hitched in my throat. On one side was the child I had carried for 10 months. On the other was the only family I had left in the world. It was an impossible choice, a decision I couldn't make. As if sensing the toxic atmosphere, the baby suddenly started to cry. His weak wails pierced my heart like tiny needles. At the same time, my brother was desperately calling my name over and over. My body began to shake violently, and I suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. The onlookers recoiled in disgust, covering their noses. Candy watched with amusement. "Time's up. You have 3 seconds. 1, 2. I reached out, wanting to stroke my baby's cheek, wanting to comfort my injured brother. But my gaze ultimately fell on Ethan, the man I had loved for 5 years, been married to for 3. And right now, he was just watching as I was pushed to the brink, even helping them corner me. Despair washed over me like a tidal wave. My lips trembled, but before I could voice a decision, my world went black and I passed out. "Cole!" I snapped my eyes open, struggling to sit up. A pair of strong, commanding hands pushed me back down by the shoulders. I looked up and met Ethan's intense gaze. He was sitting by my bedside, a hint of exhaustion in his eyes. "Ethan, Where's my brother? I grabbed his wrist, my voice shaking uncontrollably. What did you do to Cole? Tell me. Ethan frowned and pried my fingers off him, his tone unervingly calm. You were unconscious for a day, he said. Since you didn't make a decision, I chose the baby for you. If Candy hadn't been so kind and begged for mercy, Cole would have had both his hands broken. What? I stared at him in disbelief, my voice a furious roar. Ethan, you monster! I tried to get out of bed, desperate to get to my brother, but he held me down with all his strength. You just gave birth, you can't move, he insisted. Sonny, what's done is done. Making a scene won't change anything. You need to focus on your recovery. Let go of me. I screamed like a cornered animal. That's my brother. He's the only family I have. Who gave you the right to choose for me? Who gave you the right to break his hand? Ethan, I'll kill you. The door to my room was kicked open with a bang. Candy strode in carrying a thermos, walked directly to the window, and flung the scalding hot chicken soup outside. You ungrateful brat. Who do you think you are, deserving of soup from the Miller family? She turned back to me, her face a mask of disgust. Sonny, your parents died young, so I guess no one ever taught you to be grateful. My brother gives you everything, and you have the nerve to blame him for punishing your trashy brother. We should have just crippled him from the start, she sneered, saved everyone the trouble. Candy then took out her phone and slammed it onto the bedside table. The screen lit up, playing a video of Cole being held down and beaten. I could clearly hear the sickening crack of bone as a bodyguard brought a club down on his hand. Cole was curled on the ground, howling in agony, his voice raw and desperate as he called out my name. A tremor of pure hatred shot through me. I lunged forward, shoving Ethan away with all my might. Caught off guard, he stumbled backward a few steps and slammed into the wall. I didn't look back at him, not even for a second. I ran like a madwoman toward the hospital entrance, my only thought to find my brother. But as I burst through the main doors, I stopped dead in my tracks, my blood turning to ice. There, at the bottom of the hospital steps, was Cole. He was curled up on the pavement, his left arm hanging limply at his side, his sleeve soaked through with blood. His face was ghastly pale, his brow furrowed in pain, and he was whispering, Sonny, my hand. I stumbled toward him, my voice trembling. Cole, I'm here. I'll get you help. I clutched my own aching abdomen with one hand while I struggled to loop my other arm under his, trying to lift him to his feet. We supported each other, taking one agonizing step at a time back toward the entrance. Just as I summoned my last ounce of strength to push the doors open, Candy and her bodyguards appeared, blocking our way. A wicked smile spread across her face. Want to save your brother, Sonny? It's simple. Get on your knees and bow your head to the floor 10 times. Keep going until I'm satisfied. In your dreams. Cole snapped his head up, his voice hoarse. Sonny, let's go. Don't beg her. A woman like that isn't worth it. We'll find another hospital. Someone will help me. Let's just go. Candy looked down on us, her tone absolute. I'm telling you, with one call from the Miller family, not a single hospital in this entire city will dare to admit him. My eyes shifted to Ethan, standing right behind her. He just stood there watching, letting Candy humiliate us. A bitter smile formed on my lips. Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Ethan, I said, my voice shaking, have you forgotten the promise you made to me the day you proposed? My voice trembled, but every word was crystal clear. You said you would love Cole like he was your own brother. And look what happened. Ethan froze, as if he'd been struck. The cold mask on his face shattered, replaced by a flicker of panic. Candy noticed and quickly took his arm, as if to steady him. Sonny, how can you say that? Candy cooed. Ethan has been more than good to Cole. It was Cole who was disrespectful and offended me first. He did something wrong, so he has to be punished. Stop trying to guilt-trip my brother. Ethan stepped forward, his tall frame casting an intimidating shadow. His eyes were filled with disappointment and disgust. Sonny, I thought you were a reasonable person. I never imagined you were so incapable of telling right from wrong. You don't have to kneel, he continued. Just walk away from him, and there will still be a place for you with the Millers. You know what's more important, Sonny? Your child or your brother? I let out a sharp, bitter laugh and pulled off my wedding ring. With a flick of my wrist, I threw the diamond ring hard onto the pavement. It bounced once before settling at Ethan's feet. My voice was ice. Ethan, we're done. With that, I gritted my teeth, helped my brother to his feet, and walked away without a backward glance. We tried 3 different major hospitals, but we were turned away at the entrance of each one. I knew Candy had already made the calls. She wanted to back us into a corner with no way out. By nightfall, I finally found a small clinic. I grabbed the arm of the elderly doctor who greeted us and pleaded, "Doctor, please, you have to look at my brother's hand. We'll pay whatever it costs." The old doctor frowned as he cut away Cole's sleeve. His entire forearm was severely swollen and bruised. The doctor barely touched the injury, and my brother almost passed out from the pain. The doctor sighed. "This is a very serious injury," he said gravely. "All I can do here is basic first aid. He needs to get to a proper hospital immediately. If you wait any longer, the pressure from the fracture on the blood vessels could mean he'll need an amputation." Hearing the word amputation, my legs gave out and I collapsed. "Sonny," Cole cried out from the examination table, trying to get up. The sudden movement pulled at his injury, and his face twisted in agony. Still, he gritted his teeth and reached his good hand out to me. "Sonny, don't worry. I still have one good hand. As long as you don't think I'll be a burden." The despair in his eyes was a knife in my heart. "Cole, don't worry, I promised. I will not let them amputate your arm." Just then, the clinic door was kicked open with a violent bang. Candy stood there, looking down at us. Well, Sonny, I wonder where you'd run off to. I can't believe you ended up in a dump like this." She then turned her malicious gaze to my brother. "Cole, if you have to blame someone for losing your arm, blame your sister. She's the one who refused to kneel for you." The old doctor frowned. "Ma'am, there's a patient here. Please be more considerate." "Considerate?" Candy scoffed, pulling a thick wad of cash from her purse and tossing it on the desk. "Old man, that's enough to cover your rent for the next 6 months. Now get them out of here. If you don't, I'll not only shut this place down, I'll make sure you can't practice in this city ever again." One of her bodyguards took a menacing step toward the doctor. The doctor hesitated for a long moment before letting out a defeated sigh. He quietly put down his instruments. "I'm sorry, miss." The word amputation echoed in my head. I scrambled to my feet and then dropped, my knees hitting the hard floor as I began to bow my head to Candy again and again. Ignoring the blood that started to trickle from my forehead, I begged in a raw voice, "Candy, please, I'm begging you. Get my brother to a doctor. Don't let him lose his arm. I'll do anything you ask. Anything." Candy crossed her arms, a cruel, disgusted smile on her face. "Beg me? Sonny, did you hit your head when you fell? When did I ever say I'd help your brother if you bowed to me?" Her words were the final straw, shattering the last bit of hope I had. In a flash, I grabbed a scalpel from a nearby tray and pressed it against her throat. "Candy, you're going to take my brother to the best hospital in New York right now. You will find him the best orthopedic surgeon, or I swear you'll pay with your life." Candy began to tremble, screaming and struggling against the blade. "Sonny, are you insane? Ethan, help me." As if on cue, Ethan burst into the room. His eyes went wild with fury. "Sonny," he roared, "you're crazy. How dare you threaten Candy?" Before I could say a word, he kicked me hard in the stomach. I hit the floor hard, the impact jarring every bone in my body. "Ethan, open your eyes." I gasped. "She's the one who won't let my brother get medical help. She's trying to destroy us. She is the one in the wrong, and you just keep letting her get away with it." Clutching my stomach, I struggled to look up at him, my eyes burning with accusation. But Ethan ignored me, fussing over Candy to make sure she was unharmed. When he finally looked back at me, his expression was pure, cold loathing. I will never forgive anyone who hurts Candy. He barked an order at the bodyguards in the doorway. "Break her brother's other hand. Let's show her what it feels like to wish she were dead." In that desperate moment, my trembling fingers found my phone in my pocket. My fingers fumbled frantically across the screen. The second the call connected, I screamed into the phone with every ounce of strength I had left. "Is this Mr. Peterson? From the Ark?" My voice was a choked, sobbing plea. "I'm the daughter of Walter and Elaine Vance. My brother, they're going to kill him. They're going to break his other arm. Please, I'm begging you, please help us." Ethan impatiently snatched the phone from my hand. "Calling for help?" I like to see who in this city has the guts to interfere with my business. But a second later, a powerful, authoritative voice came through the speaker. I don't care who you are, the voice commanded. You take your hands off her right now. If you touch her again, you will face the consequences. Kenny just rolled her eyes. Sonny, did you really think one phone call would save you? I'm telling you, not even God himself could help you now. With that, she threw my phone to the ground, shattering it. Then Ethan gave a cold, simple command. The bodyguard raised the steel club again. I grabbed the scalpel again and pressed it to my own throat. Ethan, if you hurt my brother again, I will die right here in front of you. I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life haunted by the fact that you drove me to it. Are you threatening me, Sonny? He asked. I said nothing, only glaring at him with pure, unadulterated hatred. The look in my eyes made him take a step back. While we were locked in this standoff, Kenny snatched the club from the bodyguard. You might be able to threaten my brother, Sonny, but you can't threaten me. You dare to pull a weapon on me. For that, I'm going to make sure your brother's arms and legs are broken. He'll be a useless cripple for the rest of his life. A triumphant smile played on her lips as she advanced on us. A bitter wave of regret washed over me. When Ethan and I first started dating, Candy always acted as if I had stolen him from her, making my life difficult at every turn. Back then, I thought love could conquer anything. I never imagined it would lead to so much pain for me and for my brother. Just then, a loud, rhythmic thumping sound started up outside. An elderly gentleman in a sharp, formal suit pushed the door open. His piercing gaze swept across the room. When his eyes landed on me and my injured brother, his voice boomed. Who did this? Candy was momentarily taken aback by the man's commanding presence. After looking him up and down, her fear turned to scorn. What a performance, she sneered. Are you another one of Sonny's poor relatives? Get lost. When the old man didn't react, she grew bolder, tilting her chin up arrogantly. Let me tell you something. You're on Miller territory now. If you know what's good for you, you'll leave. If not, don't blame us when you get hurt. Mr. Peterson replied with a faint, knowing smile. Oh, is that right? The words had barely left his mouth when the sound of rapid footsteps echoed from the alley. A team of disciplined men in black suits stormed into the clinic. The man in the lead walked directly to Mr. Peterson and bowed respectfully. Sir, everything is ready. Mr. Peterson gave a slight nod, then turned to my brother and me, his expression softening. Don't be afraid, children, he said gently. No one will harm you while I'm here. The lead agent understood and gestured to his team. Two paramedics rushed in with a stretcher and carefully began securing Cole for transport. Another agent helped me to my feet. Miss Vance, he said, don't worry. We will do everything possible to treat your brother. I managed a weak nod, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Ethan and Candy stood frozen, their faces pale with shock. Seeing them for the bullies and cowards they were, a wave of profound sadness washed over me. I had wasted so much of my life on people like this, and, in the end, I had dragged my brother down with me. Just as we were about to board the helicopter waiting outside, Ethan's hoarse voice called out from behind us. Stop! He stumbled forward, blocking our path. Who do you think you are? He demanded. What right do you have to take them? Cole made a mistake, and he deserved to be punished. This is our family's business, and it's none of your concern. Candy rushed to his side. Exactly. Who are you to interfere? Sonny is a nobody, and her brother deserved what he got. Mr. Peterson's expression hardened, his gaze turning icy as he stared them down. On what grounds? He repeated with a cold laugh. He reached into his suit jacket, pulled out a faded photograph, and held it in front of Ethan. The photo showed a young man and woman in lab coats, standing in front of a research facility. The resemblance to me and Cole was unmistakable, on the grounds that her father, Walter Vance, and her mother, Elaine Vance, were two of this country's most brilliant research scientists. Mr. Peterson's voice rose, filled with years of suppressed grief and reverence. On the grounds that 10 years ago, they were killed in an attack overseas while protecting vital national security data. They died serving this country. The words struck like a bolt of lightning. Ethan shuddered, staring at me in utter disbelief. I trembled, tears stinging my eyes, but I bit my lip and refused to let them fall. The truth about my parents was the deepest secret of my life. Their final wish was for Mr. Peterson to ensure we were kept out of the spotlight, to let us live safe, ordinary lives. Mr. Peterson put the photo away, his eyes like chips of ice. They never wanted fame or fortune. All they asked was that I watch over their children and ensure they had a normal life. I gave them my word. But you harmed their children. You insulted their daughter. You trampled on the very peace they died to protect. You asked me on what grounds I take them. That is my grounds. As he finished speaking, two of his men stepped forward and easily pushed the stunned Ethan aside. Ethan's body went slack, and he kept muttering, "Died for their country, impossible. How could she?" Candy was so terrified her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the ground. Mr. Peterson didn't spare them another glance. "Let's go," he ordered his team. Just as the helicopter door was closing, I heard Ethan's voice, full of a desperate longing. "Sonny." I acted as if I hadn't heard him and didn't look back. A few minutes later, the helicopter touched down on the roof of Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. Cole was rushed into surgery. After 5 agonizing hours of waiting, the surgeon finally came out. "Miss Vance," he said with a kind smile, "the surgery was a complete success. With proper physical therapy, he should make a full recovery." Hearing those words, all the tension left my body at once. My vision swam, and I collapsed. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital bed, and Cole was resting peacefully in the bed next to me. I let out a huge sigh of relief. Mr. Peterson's voice was gentle but firm. "Sonny, you just gave birth. Your body is weak. You must get some rest." He glanced over at Cole, his expression a mixture of sadness and anger. "Don't you worry," he said. "I will make sure Cole gets justice." I nodded slowly, then took out my phone and, without a moment's hesitation, called the police. A short while later, my phone began ringing nonstop. I answered, and Ethan's annoyed voice came through the line. "Sonny, how could you call the police? Your brother was the one who started it. Just drop the charges, and we can forget any of this ever happened. I'm even willing to take you back," he added. "Our family of 3 can have a good life together." I gave a cold laugh. "You're shameless. Still trying to blame my brother for everything. We'll see who ends up in jail." With that, I hung up on him. Once I had full custody of my son, we would have nothing more to do with each other. I never expected him to show up at the hospital. The door to my room burst open with a bang. Ethan stood in the doorway, his face dark and menacing. Behind him, Candy glared at me, her voice sharp and shrill. "Sonny, I'm asking you one last time. Are you dropping the charges?" I met her gaze with a cold stare and said nothing. My silence seemed to fuel her rage. She let out a nasty laugh and pulled her phone from her purse. She shoved the lit screen right in my face. "So that's your answer? Fine. Then you should see this." My eyes focused on the screen, and my pupils contracted in horror. It was my baby, lying alone in his crib, his face red and blotchy from crying so hard his little voice was hoarse. "See that?" Kenny asked. She gave me a triumphant, malicious smile. "Because you were stupid enough to press charges, you've turned the Miller household upside down. My parents are sick with worry. The house is a mess. Who has time to take care of some little bastard? He's been crying like that since this morning. No one's been to check on him. Just listen. Can you hear how pathetic he sounds?" The air left my lungs. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the tiny, miserable figure on the screen. Snapping back to reality, I lunged at Ethan and slapped him across the face with all my strength. "Ethan, you animal. Look at him. He's crying so hard he can barely breathe. He's your son too. How could you let this happen?" He pushed me away coldly. "Drop the charges, and everyone will be fine," he warned. Otherwise what?" A new voice interjected. "Otherwise, you are finished." The cold voice came from behind me, cutting him off. It was Mr. Peterson. At his command, his security team moved in and restrained both Ethan and Candy. Assault, battery, and now adding threats and intimidation. With all these charges combined, you'll be spending the rest of your lives in prison. Before I could even process what was happening, Candy dropped to her knees in front of me, grabbing my hands. "Sonny, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I wasn't thinking straight. I didn't mean any of it. Please, can you forgive me? I swear I know I was wrong." Her grip was painful, and I was stunned by her sudden change in behavior. Then, a wave of pure disgust and rage washed over me. I tried to pull my hands away, but she only squeezed them tighter. Hit me, scream at me, do whatever you want. Anything to make you feel better, she sobbed, acting as if she were the one who had been wronged. I'll never compete with you for Ethan's attention again. I don't want anything. If you'll just forgive me this once, I'll pay for all of Cole's medical bills. Shut up. I ripped my hands free, grabbed a fistful of her hair, and yanked her head back. You don't think you were wrong. You're just scared. I began slapping her back and forth across the face. The sharp sounds echoed in the quiet room. I don't want your money, I seethed, and I don't want your pathetic, fake apology. I looked at her red, marked face. I just want you and him to stand in a courtroom and pay the price for what you've done. On the day of the trial, I requested the proceedings be made public. The news went viral, and the entire country was watching. When I saw Ethan and Candy in court, their previous arrogance was completely gone. I sat in the gallery, my face pale, but my gaze resolute. As the trial began, all the evidence was presented, including recordings of Candy's own words. A woman who trapped my brother into marriage. Does she really think she's worthy of having a Miller baby? You'd better be smart about this, Sonny, or no one will be there to take care of your precious little son. The comments on the court's live stream exploded. Oh my God, can you believe she said that? What kind of monster is she? Those two are disgusting. I feel so bad for the wife and baby. Another comment read, boycott the Miller Corporation. A few minutes later, under immense public pressure, the Miller Corporation's board released a short, cold statement on Twitter regarding the termination of Mr. Ethan Miller. The announcement was like a physical slap across Ethan's face. When the news was read in court, all the color drained from his face. He knew, with absolute certainty, just how catastrophically he had failed. In the end, Ethan and Candy were found guilty of aggravated assault and other charges, and both were sentenced to 10 years in prison. No. Candy, who had been maintaining a calm facade, completely broke down when the sentence was read. She let out a piercing scream, her pretty face contorting into an ugly mask of rage and despair. Tears and snot streamed down her face. She whipped her head around to glare at the equally devastated Ethan beside her. This is all your fault, she shrieked. You useless coward. You couldn't even control your own wife. If it weren't for you, the Millers wouldn't be in this mess. This has nothing to do with me. You're the one who married that curse. You ruined me. You ruined our entire family. Ethan looked up at the stepsister he had always cherished, and for the first time, his eyes were filled with nothing but disgust and regret. He had lost everything. His career, his future, his freedom, and now even this twisted bond he had called family. As the bailiffs led Candy away, she was still struggling and screaming. It was his fault. All his fault. It had nothing to do with me. In the final court case, I was granted sole custody of my son. The judge also terminated Ethan's parental rights, denying him any visitation. The color drained from Ethan's face, and he lost his composure completely, shouting, "Why? He's my son too. You can't do this to me. Sonny," he cried, his voice hoarse with a final, desperate plea. "Please forgive me. Give me one more chance. And he can't grow up without a father. He's my son. He can't grow up without a father." I repeated his words softly, a scornful smile touching my lips. "You don't deserve to be one." Those words struck him like a physical blow. His face went completely white as he stared at me, searching my eyes for any flicker of the love that used to be there. But all he found was pure, undisguised contempt. His large frame seemed to collapse in on itself as he sank into his chair. "Don't deserve it," he whispered. "Yes, I don't deserve it." Ethan began to ramble, apologizing over and over, his voice thick with regret and despair. "It was my fault. All my fault. I never should have hurt you, or Cole, or our baby. I'm a monster. Please, just give me one more chance to make it right." But I just stood there silently, watching him like a detached observer. Because to me, the man I had married was already long dead. With the custody papers in hand, I went straight to the Miller residence to get my son. When Ethan's parents saw me, their faces darkened. "Where is Andy?" I asked. "Andy," Mrs. Miller shrieked, pointing a finger in my face. "You bitch! How dare you show your face here and ask for Andy?" Haven't you done enough damage to this family? You got Ethan fired and sent to prison. You caused our company's stock to crash. We're facing bankruptcy. You've made the Miller family a laughingstock in New York high society. And now you want to take the only heir we have left. I fought to keep my voice even. This is a court order. Andy is my son, and I'm taking him with me. A court order? Mr. Miller sneered, his eyes hostile. You are a curse on this family. If it weren't for you, none of this would have happened. Because of you, our grandson doesn't have a father. This is all your fault. I didn't want to argue with them, so I just walked past them and headed upstairs. Mrs. Miller shrieked, instinctively barking orders. Security, stop her. Throw this bitch out. But this time no one came. She seemed to remember that the Miller fortune was gone. In the sprawling mansion, there was no one left but the two of them. Mrs. Miller swayed on her feet, the color draining from her face. I pushed open the nursery door and gently lifted my son from his crib. He had been born full term, but he was so frail he looked like a premature baby. I rushed him to the emergency room. The doctor looked at me with disapproval. Any later, and he would have died from neglect. What kind of mother are you? I bowed my head in shame as tears streamed down my face. Andy, I'm so sorry, I whispered. It's my fault. Mommy failed to protect you. From that day on, I dedicated my entire life to him. Andy's frail little body grew stronger every day. Cole's hand healed completely. I found myself smiling again. Everything was finally moving in the right direction. 10 years later, on a bright afternoon, my phone vibrated on the table. I picked it up and saw an unfamiliar local number. Hello, I answered. At first, all I could hear was heavy breathing on the other end. I was about to hang up, assuming it was a spam call, when I heard a hoarse voice say my name. Sonny. My heart skipped a beat. It was Ethan. My fingers tightened around the phone, but I remained silent. Today, the voice on the other end said slowly, is the day I was released. Candy, he continued. She killed herself in her second year inside. He paused, as if it took all his courage to continue. Can I see you? Just once. I just want to see you and see Andy. I let out a cold laugh and refused without a second thought. Ethan, there's no reason for us to ever see each other again. Andy is doing great, and I don't want anyone disturbing his life. His breathing grew heavier, and his voice broke. Sonny, I know I was wrong. I really do. I've spent every single day of the last 10 years regretting what I did. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking to see him. Just one look. I promise. I'll leave right after and never bother you again. Sonny, please, he begged. Think of it as a dying man's last request. I sighed, a long, heavy breath, and reluctantly agreed. At 3 o'clock sharp, the door of the coffee shop opened and a man walked in. I glanced up and froze. It was Ethan, but he was wearing an ill-fitting, cheap jacket and a pair of faded jeans. His shoulders were stooped, and he was painfully thin. He looked 20 years older than he was. He looked around the cafe nervously before his eyes found me. With a complicated expression on his face, he walked to my table. Sit down, I said, my voice perfectly calm. I took a photograph out of my purse and placed it on the table between us. This is Andy from his last birthday. Ethan reached for it with a trembling hand, his fingers tracing the image as if it were made of glass. The irony of the moment was almost laughable. Because of you and your sister, I said quietly, he almost died. Ethan flinched as if I'd struck him, and his hand began to shake. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for letting me see him. I turned my gaze away and looked out the window. After a few minutes, I calmly took the photo back from him. Take care of yourself, Mr. Miller, I said. Then I stood up and walked out of the coffee shop. Behind me, the man who had once seemed so powerful finally broke down, his shoulders shaking with loud, ragged sobs. He cried with a pain that was filled with a decade of regret and despair. When I stepped out of the cafe, the sun was shining and a gentle breeze was blowing. I got an iMessage from Andy, asking for my help planning the party for Cole's marriage proposal. I smiled. I didn't pay any mind to the sounds of weeping behind me, nor did I dwell on the past. All of that felt like it had happened in another lifetime. The moment I turned away, my world contained only the bright, hopeful future ahead of me. From that day forward, my family and I lived a happy, peaceful, and wonderful life.